Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Happy March. It's a new month. I hope you guys had an amazing February. I have to admit right away, February was not an amazing or a good reading month for me. My husband got sick at the beginning of the month, and therefore I got sick. After he started feeling better, I got sick. So, it happens. It's life, right? So, I did only read two books and one short story. So let's jump right in. The first book I read this month was a continuation of the series I have been reading since the beginning of the year, and that is The Chronicles of Narnia. But I did start this month with book 6, which is The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. It is the sixth book out of the 7 book series of The Chronicles of Narnia, and I have to admit, it was not one of my favorite books in the series. It wasn't a bad book at all, but it was just not one of my favorites. I believe one of the biggest things I have liked in all the previous books, um, before this book in the series, was the character development, and you really got to see like the heart of the characters. And in this one, you still do, but it felt a little different. I just couldn't fully connect with the characters in this book, and that's okay, right? I mean, it's a 7 book series. I mean, we're bound to not like one or a few, right? And this was the one I wasn't too excited about, I guess. Don't get me wrong, it was still entertaining and very suspenseful. I feel like all of these books in the series were very suspenseful. I do think that if I read these at a young age, it would have had a very big impact, I think, on me. I mean, I still feel like it is having a big impact on me because I do not regret the time I have spent in Narnia, but I feel like it would have really stuck with me. Like, I feel like in the same sense that Harry Potter has stuck with me, I feel like this series would have stuck with me just the same. This book also does touch on a very important topic, just like all the other ones did. This book talks about it starts off with a bullying scene. Jill and Eustace are being bullied. They're not in the best situation, so they start running away, and in this running away, they end up somehow tripping into a part of Narnia where it's kind of like this in between, I guess. And then eventually they do make it to Narnia, and that's where the adventure begins for them. In the previous books, we explored the trees of Narnia, the hills of Narnia, the mountains of Narnia, the skies of Narnia, the oceans, the waters of Narnia. Well, in this book, we discover the underground of Narnia. We go under Narnia. So I think that is fascinating, because we are really truly exploring Narnia with these children. We discover these other creatures underground, giants. Yeah, we discover a lot more and a whole different side of Narnia. And in this book, they focus on finding Prince Caspian's son, who has been missing for 10 years, or over 10 years, sorry, not 10 years, over 10 years. And it gets intense, it gets scary. For some reason, this was not one of my favorite books. Nothing in particularly bad. I don't know. I don't know if I was just over it. I think that was the 6th book in Narnia. And the second book that I read, which will be to nobody's surprise at all, is the last book in the Chronicles of Narnia, the 7th book. And that book is The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis. This book was honestly bittersweet for me because at this point I was ready to be done with the books and, done with this journey. But at the same time, I wasn't, because I really, really, really loved the characters, like the animal characters in this book. I love Aslan. Ripichi is my favorite. And as much as I was ready to be done, I knew it was going to be sad, and I knew it was just going to be, I mean, the title says it, right? The last battle. I knew it was going to be the last epic scene battle that we were going to experience together in Narnia. I do have to say, though, that this book was the darkest of them all. It was very, very, very intense. There is a lot a lot of symbolism and, parts that kind of align with the last book of the Bible. And it got dark. It got very, very dark. This is the most epic good versus evil fight that we experience in this world. And honestly, it's just so memorable. Like, I read it a month ago at this point, and I can still vividly remember some of the scenes that are described and just feeling the anxiety of, waiting to see what would happen, because at this point, I don't want to give it away. So I'm not going to say what I was about to say. But it is just very intense, and you kind of know that some things are just not going to work out, but at the end of the day it will, but you don't know how it's going to connect. And it's just very, very, very intense and emotional. And the way that it ends is just beautifully heartbreaking. I think that is the best way I can describe it. It was just beautifully heartbreaking. I did not see the ending coming. I knew that somehow things were going to work out, but the ending is not how I thought it was going to all work out. So I was left in shock. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. But again, it was still beautiful. And now that my time with Narnia in the books is over, I will be watching all the movies that are out so far, because I want to see how they adapted it to film, I guess. And also, a side note on this, I did read that Netflix is doing like its own adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia, and the movie comes out November 2026 in IMAX, like in the big screens, and it's going to be released. The adaptation that they do is going to be released on Netflix on Christmas 2026. So you have time to read the books if you are like me and like to read the books before watching the movies or the shows. And in true Pamela fashion, my camera died. So there's that. I had to change the battery. But I guess it died in a perfect time, because I was just wrapping up the 2 books that I read in the Chronicles of Narnia. And now I get to talk about the book that I actually do have in person, which is, technically it's Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. I did not read this full thing last month. Because right after I finished the last book in the series, that's when I got sick. So I did not read for about like a week and a half, because honestly, my attention span was just not there. The first few days that I was sick, I was just sleeping on and off all day and all night. And then I binge watched Sweet Magnolias on Netflix. And yeah, I just didn't really have the attention span to read, to focus on little text. I wasn't really even on my phone. I just was not feeling it. So I didn't read. And that's okay. But on February 21st, 2025, The Monkey, the movie, came out. And that movie is based off of The Monkey short story by Stephen King. And that short story is in this collection. It is, I think it's about 60 pages. It's not that long. It is a very, very short story. I read it in about an hour and a half. And I did read it right before we went to see the movie. So the contrast between the short story and the movie that I experienced was a lot, I feel like. I'm not really going to review the movie, but I really enjoyed it. It has some Easter eggs in like throughout the movie. From other Stephen King works. So that was interesting. And like, it's always fun to see like the little Easter eggs here and there, but it was different from the book. And honestly, it's okay. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It is a horror comedy. So be aware of that. Because apparently a lot of people on the internet did not know it was a comedy and were shocked when things started happening in the movie and people were laughing. So it is a horror comedy. It's very gross, but it's really good. So that's as much as a review I'm going to give. Although I said I wasn't going to do it, that's as much as I'm going to give. But now going back, the short story, I really enjoyed it. I did not know what to expect going into it. A lot of Stephen King's work, I just jump in because I like to be confused where I need to be confused, and I like to be surprised where I need to be surprised. I just jump straight into the short story, and I was pleasantly surprised. It has Stephen King's signature writing or moments where he stretches something out just long enough for it to be a little bit uncomfortable, and then he just like lets something like extreme happen where it like shocks you or something, you know? I enjoy that in Stephen King's writing. There are flashbacks with reality just interwoven in this book. And again, I love all that. I think he does it very, very well, especially in this short story. You got just enough information at just the right time that it just kept me just hooked and just wanted to keep turning the pages because I wanted to know what happened next. This monkey is so scary. I loved monkeys, and now, I mean, I still like them, but you know, maybe like the wind up kind of monkeys, I'll be like, I don't know. It was good. There's so much eeriness. That monkey is just so creepy. It's really uncomfortable around, you know, like the story is, there's just so much uncomfortableness throughout the story, but it just works. It's good. It's simple, effective, and solid. Again, it's not a big, like it's not a like a longer short story. It's about 60 pages. So I don't know, like I just think he gave enough information, and he, you know, where you get to still connect with the characters, you still get to feel for the characters, and you still get to be very, very, very freaked out by this monkey. And I hadn't read a Stephen King book in such a long time, I feel like, that it just honestly reminded me how much I do love Stephen King and his writing and his like just his storytelling. So I will be reading more short stories from this collection this month. I don't know. I don't want to commit to the entire thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do end up reading the whole thing. I love Stephen King, and this was such a great reminder of how much I love his books. And with that, that is the my reading wrap up. This is probably the shortest video I have so far on my channel, and that's okay. I do want to know what you guys have been reading up until today. And if you guys recommend anything for me to add to my TBR list, let me know in the comments. I really, really would love to hear from you guys and see what you guys are into. And if you guys have read The Monkey by Stephen King and don't agree with me, I also kind of want to know. I want to know why it didn't work for you. And, you know, and if you loved it too, also let me know why you loved it. Yeah, I hope you guys had an amazing February, and I hope we have a great March. Yeah, I mean, the days keep ticking by, so let's make the most of it. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.